The most dangerous lie in self-improvement sounds like wisdom. Just want less. It sounds enlightened, peaceful, evolved. And it's quietly destroying the people who believe it. Because every time you shrink, what you want to fit what feels safe, you're sending yourself a message. And that message is, you are too much. This idea has roots, ancient ones. Stoicism, Buddhism, minimalism. Traditions that genuinely offer something valuable about detachment and presence. But somewhere between Marcus Aurelius and your Instagram feed, release attachment to outcomes, got flattened into something much uglier. Stop wanting things. And those two ideas could not be more different. Releasing attachment means you pursue what matters without letting the outcome control your emotional survival. Minimizing desire means you pre-reject yourself before the world gets the chance. One is freedom, the other is a flinch disguised as philosophy. Think about when you first started doing this. Chances are you wanted something and it hurt. A relationship that didn't work, a creative project no one noticed, a career move that fell apart. The wanting itself became associated with the pain. So you learned a trick. If I never want anything that badly again, I can never be hurt that badly again. Elegant logic. And it works. The same way never leaving your house works to prevent car accidents. The cost shows up slowly. You stop knowing what you actually like. Someone asks where you want to eat, and you genuinely have no preference. Someone asks what you'd do with your life if money were irrelevant and your mind goes blank. That blankness feels like calm. It is actually numbness, and the difference matters more than almost anyone realizes. Psychologists who study motivation draw a hard line between two types of goal disengagement. The first is strategic. You let go of a specific path because a better one emerged, or because the goal itself was inherited from someone else and was never yours. That kind of letting go sharpens you. The second type is protective. You let go because wanting felt dangerous. You kill the desire to kill the vulnerability. That kind of letting go hollows you out over time. The tricky part is, they look identical from the outside. Both people say, I'm at peace with it. Both people seem calm, but one of them chose clarity, the other chose anesthesia, and the body knows the difference even when the mind has constructed an airtight story about acceptance. You can actually feel it if you pay attention. When you've genuinely released something, there's a lightness, like setting down a bag you forgot you were carrying. When you've suppressed a desire and called it growth, there's a flatness, a low-grade heaviness that lives just below the surface. The kind of tired that sleep doesn't fix. Here's where it gets structural. Desire is information. Every want you have is data about who you are and what you need to function. When you systematically mute that signal, you lose access to your own compass. And a person without a compass doesn't become free, they become easy to steer. The partner who says whatever you want in every conversation. The employee who never pushes back. The friend who's always available because they've pruned their own life down to nothing that could conflict with yours. From the outside, this person looks easygoing, flexible, low maintenance. From the inside, they're disappearing. The philosopher Harry Frankfurt wrote about something he called second-order desires. Desires about your desires. You might want a cigarette and simultaneously want to not want a cigarette. That tension is healthy. It's the mechanism of self-governance. But when you skip the tension entirely and just amputate the wanting, you're removing the raw material that self-governance works with. You can't steer a parked car. So why does this feel so virtuous? Because culture rewards it, selectively. Notice who gets praised for wanting less. It's rarely the CEO. Rarely the athlete. Rarely the person whose ambition is already validated by status. The people who hear you should be grateful for what you have most often are the ones whose desires would require the people around them to adjust. Your desire for more is inconvenient to someone. And they prefer you frame your surrender as enlightenment, that quiet moment when you talked yourself out of applying for the job. When you told yourself you didn't really need the trip, the degree, the conversation. Each one of those moments left a residue, and residue accumulates. 5 years of I'm fine with what I have, and you wake up one morning unable to feel excited about anything, and you call it maturity. The clinical literature on depression has a term worth knowing: Anhedonia, the inability to feel pleasure. It's one of the core diagnostic markers. And while clinical depression has biological drivers that go far beyond mindset, There's a behavioral pathway into Anhedonia that looks exactly like what we've been describing. You train yourself out of wanting. Wanting was the engine of pleasure. Remove the engine and wonder why the car stopped moving. A therapist named Diana Fosher built an entire treatment model around the idea that the suppression of core emotional experience, including desire, creates what she calls the crisis of aloneness. You abandon yourself before anyone else can abandon you. You make yourself small so you'll never be too much, and then you sit in the smallness and mistake it for peace. The exit from this is uncomfortable, which is part of why people avoid it. Reconnecting with desire means reconnecting with vulnerability. If you want the promotion, you might get passed over. If you want the relationship, they might say no. If you want to create something, people might ignore it. The risk is real. The wanting itself is the exposure, but there's something on the other side of that discomfort that the minimized life can never offer: aliveness. The specific feeling of caring about something enough that the outcome matters to you. The nervous energy before you try. The flush of engagement when you're pursuing something that's genuinely yours. Monks who practice genuine renunciation, the real thing, rooted in decades of contemplative work, describe an experience of fullness, of overflowing. They gave up material wants because inner experience became so rich it made acquisition feel redundant. That trajectory goes from abundance to simplicity. What most people are doing goes from scarcity to resignation. The direction matters. Starting from, I have too much inner fire and I'm learning to hold it gently, is the opposite of starting from wanting hurts, so I'll stop. You can test which one you're doing right now. Think about something you wanted in the last year and talk to yourself out of. Sit with it for a second. If the memory brings a clean, clear sense of that path closed and I'm genuinely fine, you practice discernment. If it brings a tight, muted ache, something between numbness and regret, you practice self-abandonment and labeled it wisdom. The ache is the signal, and the signal is asking you to come back. Reclaiming desire doesn't mean becoming greedy or reckless. It means trusting that what you want is worth investigating, rather than suppressing. It means allowing yourself to be a person who needs things, reaches for things, and sometimes gets hurt in the reaching. That willingness to be affected by life, to be changed by your own participation in it, is the entire game. Every philosophy worth following eventually arrives at the same place: engagement, chosen freely, with full awareness of the cost. The Stoics didn't want less. They wanted clearly. They stripped away borrowed goals to find the ones that survived the fire. The Buddhists didn't kill desire. They studied it until they could hold it without being owned by it. Somewhere between those traditions and your coping mechanisms, a critical translation error occurred. You took hold lightly and heard, let go. You took detach from outcomes and heard, stop caring. And now you're sitting in a life that fits perfectly because you cut yourself to match it. The question worth asking is simple, and it will keep you up tonight if you let it in. What would you want if you weren't afraid of wanting it?